Our next speaker will be Nick Hankoff for the 10th Amendment Center, followed by our keynote speaker, Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers. So Nick's going to give him a hard act to follow. Come on, Nick. Introducing Nick Hankoff.
Thank you all so much for being here. It looks beautiful from this scene, so if you get a chance, come up closer and just take a look. It's a great image, so thank you guys for being here and representing. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, the them is you, by the way, it is their right, your duty to throw off such a government. Now, how can we ever fulfill that duty without arms? It's ridiculous. Judge Napolitano taught me on YouTube that the Declaration of Independence was adopted into the U.S. Code. That means that your duty also is the law. Now, I hear the argument that the right to keep and bear arms must be protected because someday the U.S. government may become tyrannical. Well, who here doesn't believe any person with an internet connection could find readily available facts to submit to a candid world today? The fact is, all the guns in America have in fact not prevented the tyranny before us today. They're essential, guns are essential, but they are not sufficient. Actions like this one that we're a part of today are just as vital. Defending the right is just as important as the exercise of it. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, George Miller. Thank you to everyone who organized and are here today. Now, at the 10th Amendment Center, you will find coverage of over 24 county and state resolutions and bills addressing the unconstitutional gun laws emanating from Washington, D.C. Both the Second Amendment Preservation Act and Firearms Freedom Act are found with the rest of our model legislation. The Second Amendment Preservation Act is all-encompassing, rendering all federal gun laws, regulations, rules, acts, orders, etc., null and void within the borders of the state where that legislation is passed. And the Firearms Freedom Act challenges the Commerce Clause excuse, the lie of the Commerce Clause that's used to justify regulation on any firearms made and retained in state. So I'm going to talk to you just about a few of the bills. There's got to be probably a dozen or more of these types of bills around the country right now. In Missouri, it's HB 436, and that had a successful hearing on Tuesday. There was no vote at the hearing, but there was no opposition, and it was received warmly. In Tennessee, HB 0248 and SB 0250 is delayed to next week for the Attorney General to advise on its constitutionality. That vote to hold it off was 5-4. In Utah, there was a hearing just yesterday on HB 114. That bill was held over in similar circumstances, and we're waiting for hearings on a few other really tough bills in Pennsylvania, Texas, and Oklahoma. All of these bills provide criminal penalties for enforcing any federal law on gun regulations, restrictions, and registrations. There are criminal penalties, most of them felonies. Now, it's important to know that this is a national movement, and we're not alone out here. I know I heard somebody say it's great that y'all are here, but we sure do wish there were more people. There are more people. There are so many events going on that people had to make choices whether or not to actually be here or at another one. So today is a really big day. If your friends aren't here today, then they're probably over at another event with similar conviction and similar issues. But so there is a lot of progress. There's a lot of progress in these other states, and that's all well and good. But what about California? California has the second highest number of gun owners in the country, next to Texas, number 1. 22% of Californians own guns. 8% of American gun owners live in California. But despite those stats, the political narrative seems decided without their input on the issue. And isn't it useless? Aren't we helpless here in California? No. Consider Ulster County, New York. In New York, they passed the SAFE Act with about 20 minutes of reading time. They passed the hardest gun bill in the country. In Ulster County, New York, their legislature is now putting pressure on the New York Assembly to repeal portions of the SAFE Act. So the whole point of political action needs to be as decentralized as possible. We can't count on the politicians in Sacramento to do the right thing any more than we can the politicians in Washington, D.C. We can put as much pressure as possible, and I recommend going to the county level, going to the city level, just like, you know, even if there's one fighter on the Ventura County, all it takes is one. So make sure that you have at least one person on your city or county level who is supportive of you, and that will build up the pressure that we need in Sacramento. But in California, we kind of have to consider it a success if we can just prevent more laws from being instituted, as was detailed out before. There's a whole list, and the only reason there aren't any more is because they actually have a deadline for when you can introduce these things. So, but also, aside from just directing our actions in a decentralized fashion, really the debate has to be reshaped. And today there's a great example of that in the title of today's event. It's called the Civil Rights March, and it is a civil rights march. That's not snark, that's not tongue-in-cheek or whatever, but some people might see civil rights and gun rights together, you know, thinking it's a bunch of right-wingers, and what are they thinking about civil rights? And you know, according to what they were taught in school, they might have a reasonable suspicion of why are there a bunch of people, you know, who are assumedly not on the left, if we can assume that they would be promoting civil rights. Well, that's exactly what we have to do, is redefine the debate that gun rights are civil rights, because civil rights reach out to all peoples, especially people who are most vulnerable. And right now today, there's a group in society known as gun owners that are very vulnerable and under attack from their own government, and it is a violation of civil rights, and we need to stand up for that. And you hear about civil rights being violated when someone is discriminated against, denied education, housing, or a job. Gun owners are absolutely discriminated against, denied personal defense. Champion civil rights for everybody, or you're just going to sound, as I said, snarky, desperate, hypocritical, not exactly the characterization needed for gun owners across the country right now. One way to get past this image that most people receive from their televisions is for one to come out to events like this, so people see for themselves that no, these are people just like, you know, people that are eating at the table right next to me at the same restaurant, walking into the same post office, going about their daily routine. They're my neighbors, and so being here will change the image. But I would also recommend in all of your efforts to pull coalitions together. Consider the Pink Pistols. The Pink Pistols is organized in San Francisco, but I think they have a chapter in LA. I'm not totally familiar with them, but they say that we teach queers to shoot, then we teach others that we have done so. And it's all about protection of gays being bashed in the streets because of a certain, I don't know if you call it a lifestyle, I don't know exactly what the PC term is, but the point is we need to out-left the left on gun rights and make it a civil rights issue. All right, guys, I'm running out of time, but I did want to encourage you all to go to 10thamendmentcenter.com, sign up and volunteer and become a member, and I've got more to say, so let's keep talking after the rally. Thank you very much.